The Eric McKenna project was formed in March of 2019 by Pittsburgher Eric McKenna. The project is free-form and unscripted, with discussions that are unvarnished and purely authentic. Additionally, each engagement is professionally filmed and recorded at Eric's Boogie Street studio, located in Moon Township, Pennsylvania. Guests are by invitation only and come from all walks of life. Discussion topics include business and entrepreneurship, science, art, music and film, comedy, and other entertainment disciplines. Eric's biography includes Pittsburgh realty agent, radio broadcaster, speaker, and guitarist. Additionally, Eric is the founder of Boogie Street Guitars, a guitar design and marketing firm which has worked with most notably Dimebag Darrell and Kiss legend Paul Stanley. Since 2023, the Eric McKenna Project podcast is exclusively presented by the Koza Law Group, Pittsburgh's premier business attorneys.
Exactly.
Good to see you, partner.
You too,
Glad
man.
you're here, man. Thanks for being patient with me. It's been a rough road. I'm back on the chain gang. You know,
there you go.
Back on. So good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for having
me. You look
me.
good, man.
I appreciate it. You do too. I mean, listen, you know,
two old guys, giving each other a nod.
100%. If not us, who will?
Not many.
That is true.
Let me ask you a question. Well, you got a producer, so it's different. But I've only done one show where I went the whole show and I looked over and I wasn't recording the audio. I felt so bad.
Believe it or not, Nick's done that. Nick has done that.
He's thrown you under the bus.
And he's buddy. About halfway through, he realized that he didn't hit a button, and he's like going like this to me.
How did your guest take it?
Really, luckily, it was one of those guests that was a buddy more than anything else, and we kind of laughed about it. And that's when Nick wanted to go to the shorter format, do a 30-minute conversation rather than an hour, which I wasn't thrilled about. I'm one of those guys that if the conversation's flowing, let it flow.
Yeah.
I mean, Nick, you don't got to edit and put out an hour and 30-minute show.
Oh yeah, his editing, he puts a very polished show out there. I've always been envious of that.
He does.
It's a very polished show.
Yeah, I would never say that we were the best podcast in Pittsburgh, but I think we were the best produced. I give him that credit because when you look at look and feel, everybody's style's different.
I look like something that was produced for television. I mean, what was any different than like I don't know, these daytime shows on KDK or Channel 4, right?
Where he got the idea? Jerry Seinfeld did.
Let me get this in front of you a little more, buddy. There you go. No worries.
Jerry Seinfeld had a thing he did on YouTube. Was comedians having coffee in cars or doing something like that. And Nick saw that and he said, this is what I'd like for it to look like. I'd like to be in a coffee shop or whatever. And I said, dude, I'm in a coffee shop every single morning. That's where I start my day. I like the vibe. I'm comfortable there. I'm a coffee drinker.
That's a good spot too, you film.
Oh, listen.
They're good people down there.
We stumbled onto that, and those people have been so good to us. It's to the point where...
How do you pronounce their place? I always butcher the name.
Chico Baccello. And that's Baccello. That's not even a word. People think that's Italian. They
made that up?
Lisa made it up. It sounded
that's
cool.
Amazing.
Yeah, it sounded cool. So, but yeah, they just... One of my clients was the engineer represented the Canonsburg-Houston Joint Municipal Authority, the sewage authority. And we were having a meeting in Canonsburg, and we wanted someplace to go and sit and spread out and just have a coffee, just things. And somebody suggested this place. Nobody even knew it was there, and we went up, and it just opened, and it was so cool. We're probably... I would say at least 3 days a week I start my day there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. Just like you said, great people. And that's what you want to be around. You want to be around good people.
And the way like I said, his editing is impressive. It gives you a look and feel that it's a television produced.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been very proud of that from day one. Yeah, so, he's very adaptable.
So take me back. What was what was the motivation for you to actually sit down and start filming conversations?
Oh, geez. You're going to laugh at this. I'm an old dude, man. And when Nick first presented this idea to me, people had been saying to me, because I write a blog every day. I've written a blog every day, posted it out on
I connected with you years ago.
Facebook. Yeah, I've done it for like 12 years now. And I just throw it out on my Facebook page so it's accessible to people, because I think the message is the most important thing.
Certainly.
And it picked up a following, and it's really well received. And people would say, shoot me a note or put a comment on it, say, hey, you should think about doing a podcast. And I'd say, nobody wants to listen to an old guy sit around and talk, And then Nick got wind of that, and his mother said to me one day at work, she was a colleague of mine, and she said, Nick wants to talk to you about doing a podcast. And I said, okay. I mean, I'll help the kid out. At the time, he was like 19, right? So we talked about it, and he pitched this idea, and I said, well, yeah, let's do it. If it'll help you launch things and do things, let's do it. So we just went, and I called 10 people that were good friends that I knew wouldn't say no. And I said, let's do these 10 episodes. Let's film them and, and see how it goes. And if we want to keep going after that, we'll go. And like you said, I had made a list out of about maybe 50, 75 people that I, would want to approach. And when we did that, the first podcast I ever watched or listened to was the first one we did.
Oh, get out.
I had never seen, I knew what a podcast was, but I had never taken the time to listen one, watch one, or anything like that. So then, and this is a true story. So I figured, well, I better start going and looking and see what's out there. And I stumbled across yours. And I really liked this and what you did. I thought, the way your demeanor and the way you did things.
Thank you.
And I actually, one of the things that I did in the beginning was talk too much. So I got.
Oh, we all do. I did it too.
Well, everybody did in the beginning. But one thing I got from you is, and I picked this up from you, it was that that pause is not a bad thing, right? In every conversation,
it can be dynamite.
Yes. And that's when a lot of magic happens, and I was of that mind, I was doing it almost like an interview rather than a conversation.
Yeah.
But watching you and some other folks, I really got more into that conversational style that
I think is best. And
it is.
But I mean, my early shows they were so fun. And I'm glad that they're out there, but I go back and they're cringeworthy. It's just like, Eric, shut up.
Right.
Right. But you learn over time. You do something. It's like a muscle, right? Sure. Podcasting is a muscle like anything else, and you figure it out.
Yeah. So it's worked out. We had a great time. Like I said, we went on hiatus for a while. We just took 6 months off. We're going to ramp back up. I think we're going to do a monthly show. Time wise,
it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
That's what I don't think the folks that people that enjoy podcasts but don't do them, they don't know how much work it is.
Right. It's a monumental effort, and I felt guilty because really, this the heavy lift comes after the show. When you're filming and the editing and doing all those things.
No question.
I showed up, sat in a chair, and had great conversations with great people. And then Nick took it from there.
Yeah, I envied your operation there because first off, when I met Nick, it was just I wanted a certain look and feel. We talked about it, but he had that dynamic, fluid.
Yeah,
it's almost a captivating way of filming, and for a young person to have that, I just knew. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
You lucked out with him, man.
Most definitely. And I tell him all the time, I call that cinematic. He has a cinematic vision in the way to look at things.
Yeah.
Nick should be in the feature film industry. That's what he should be doing. He should be making movies. That's his vision and his scope and how he sees things.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he'll ever get to that point. He's young. He's got a long way to go, but
he's young. We'll find his way. But to be that talented, that young, is that's a blessing.
It is.
And it's really apparent too.
And he's self-taught.
Yeah, I think a lot of the great ones are.
Yeah.
I mean, you either have to have a burning passion. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, you can go to school for something and finish it, the requirement.
Right.
If there's no burning passion inside, it's a whole differential. We'll get there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you start the podcast. Let's unwind this for a second. So, talk to me about any initial, besides the host talking too much, which we all go through that. But besides that, what were the initial takes from it? I'm guessing you loved it.
I enjoyed it. Yes, I wouldn't say I loved it. I enjoyed it.
That's interesting.
I enjoyed it. I came to love it. I learned to love it.
Really?
Yes.
That's a little different.
It was, and I'll tell you, one of my first guests was a friend of yours as well, Lynn Berry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And doing this and having Lynn as a guest, it's literally impossible not to have a great show. She's spectacular.
I do not disagree.
One of my favorite humans.
I do not disagree.
And so it was like, and I think I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the conversation, but I didn't enjoy the prep and all those different things. So, but as I got into
prepare?
Yes. And I'm like, wow, I have a list of, I'm basically almost scripting the show, right? The conversation instead of letting it flow. And then, as those first 10 shows were good friends of mine. So, and it was not all of them, but probably half of them had been on podcasts before. So, they helped me through different things. And, once I stopped trying to script the conversation and let things just flow, that's when I started to love it. Mm-hmm. Because I've always been a fan of communicating, especially interpersonal communication. Having a cup of coffee and a conversation with a friend is one of the best things you can do. I mean, it's amazing what it does.
Do you think the coffee culture may have started podcasting?
I think it did. I truly do. When I was in the heat of my career, the bulk of my career, when I was a younger fella from, maybe 45 to 55, I did a lot of traveling around the country. And what I would do whenever I was going to a new city, whether Kansas City, Omaha, didn't matter where it was, I would Google a local coffee shop. I didn't want to do any chain stuff. So I would find a local and I would go there, and that's where I would set up when I first got to the city. And I'd get my laptop and I would be doing my stuff. And you would be amazed. I was amazed at how people, they see, oh, wait, that doesn't belong here. Who's this? And they just naturally are inquisitive, and they come over and they'll say hello. And especially if you allow yourself to make eye contact with them,
right,
they'll come over. And I could find out anything I needed to know what was going on politically or any other way in that city just from talking to people in the local coffee shop.
Of course.
Better than I could go to City Hall and talk to the mayor, talk to this, do that. I'd find out what was going on in that coffee shop. And so that really started to be a comfortable place for me. I was very comfortable in that environment. It was a great vibe. And, just a little mom and pops, little coffee shops. And I was really happy when Nick agreed to really want to do the show like that, so that it was real, that we were out. And I never wanted him to edit out any of the background noise.
Right.
So you
he
listen to
does
our
it right.
shows.
He does it right. You can hear the utensils.
Yeah, you can hear it. It doesn't
it feels
impact you. It doesn't. It's it's there. You're in a public place. So
yeah,
that was cool.
It's very cool. And it's the great thing about podcasting, I think, is there's so many ways to do it. Mm-hmm. We know podcasters that go out and they travel on site and they interview people there. That's a way that works. Having a more public place to film like you do, but having like your spot, that works. Having a studio, there's no really right or wrong way to do it.
There's not. There's really not. It's all really your personal style. What do you want your brand to be? Because like Eric McKenna Project, as the James Protin podcast, I mean, that we are our brand.
Yeah.
So whatever you want that to be, whatever fits you, it works.
Yeah. I think both of us benefited from the fact that our initial idea about how to launch, it clicked with us. Like I figured, I set up the studio and I went and I did it and I was comfortable and I didn't have to really change much. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Same thing with you. You figured out where you wanted to do it publicly and how to do it, and it worked.
Well, it's the same thing for
we got lucky there.
We got very lucky because you look around this studio. Whenever I watch your show, and I try to watch every one you put out, this is you.
Yeah,
this is you. And when people that know me, that are friends, that know me very well, are never surprised to find me in a coffee shop working on my laptop. So the element, it fits your personality, it fits the brand. Yeah, it's authentic.
It's authentic. What was the biggest surprise to you when you started? What was the biggest surprise to you? Let's say 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5 shows in. What was the thing that was happening that surprised you?
I think the biggest surprise was how comfortable people got talking about their personal lives. I had a couple of people talk about things that were ultra personal that I didn't know. These were good friends of mine, but I didn't even know. And that them coming on a show and really just opening up. And again, like you said, that my favorite word, being authentic and just putting themselves out there, just raw and real and who they are. That surprised me. That really did, because I thought people would hold back. And I even kind of soft pedaled the questions. Do you know what I mean? I didn't really dig in deep. You know, okay, I'm not Dan Rather. I'm not getting it.
Yeah,
we're
we're not investigative journalists. Right? I tell people all the time, you know, that's not what this is.
And I was always made sure that when we sat down, I did it with you. When we sat down, I said, listen, we're not, this is not being filmed live. Don't worry if there's something you're uncomfortable with, if you sneeze or whatever, we're going to stop, regroup, whatever. And Nick said, why do you do that? You know, because, I think it made my guests feel more comfortable and open up, right? Because I think people looking at that camera, they're on edge. They're worried about what Nick's doing. They're not, But once I did that, I think everybody got comfortable. But that's one thing he never agreed with. He said, "We're they see the camera, we're filming. Boom, let's go."
That's different. I would think that. Yeah, I would think he would have the opposite view of that based on. How
but we
you want it to be a win-win, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you don't want them. We're not there to make them look bad.
Right.
We don't want any gotcha moments, right? That's not 100%. That's not what I don't think that's what podcasting is.
And I think that's why when you get back to your question is what surprised me. I think that's what surprised me because, people, and maybe that gave them the confidence knowing that if they regretted saying something, we could yank that out, right? But that was the surprising thing to me.
How often does that happen?
It's never happened.
Yeah, I've only had it maybe, I can count on one hand probably in almost 400 shows that it's
Is that right?
Yeah, people are cool with it.
Yeah, and we do that. I don't go and show people the show beforehand. If somebody asked to see it, I did have one person who is a dear friend of mine. Because of her work, her large corporate behemoth.
And you understand.
Their HR people, their legal people wanted to see it before. Yeah. And they came back and said, you can't run this. She said some things that they didn't feel were in her role were on brand for them. And it was a situation where Nick couldn't edit it out. So I said, well, we won't run it. We can redo it if you want. We can, knowing. And we never did get it reshot. We didn't put it out. We never did get it and it was a great show too.
That's a shame.
But and this we'll get together when we ramp back up. She's on my list, the first people to call, so we can revisit that. But yeah, that was the only experience where somebody needed to see it before it posted, and they said, no, we can't do this. I've had people need to put disclaimers, and Nick will put something in the bottom third, and but really we never had any issues. Nobody came afterwards and said, "Oh, I wish I hadn't said that, or wish I hadn't done that."
Yeah, it's a tricky slope at times.
It is,
especially when you have guests that are working for a corporation.
Yeah,
it is, and you want them to protect their job naturally, and you understand the company's reluctance too to have a freelancer out there just boom throwing stuff out there. Yeah. Right? I get it, but yeah, I wonder about that too. Did you ever think about putting? Well, let me ask you this: were there any legal hurdles in the beginning? Did you think about should I get a disclaimer? Should I get like this, or should I get this paperwork, or did you just? Because I probably should have, but I didn't.
I didn't. No, I didn't do anything like that. I thought, I'm going to stumble and bumble through this anyway, right?
I'm still doing it.
Yeah. It's just it'll be another stumble. If somebody slaps me on the wrist and say, "Whoa, you can't do it." Okay, ignorance is bliss, right? I mean, I didn't know that, or I didn't know this, and we'll correct that. But no, really didn't do anything special. We just turned the mic on and the camera, and I had a very funny story. I had a PA state senator, who is a very dear friend of mine. We've been friends long before she was elected to the Senate. And I invited her to come on the show. And I said, listen, I don't want to interview the senator. I want to interview my friend. I want to talk about your past. I want to talk about your life to this point. You've had a very interesting life. Everybody knows that senator, right? We don't need to talk about that. And she was thrilled, right? So she came on and she revealed some really cool things about her life, her journey, and her childhood that I didn't know that were, I was impressed that she had the courage to put those out there. But about halfway through, she started talking politics. So I just let her go. I said, so when we were done, I said, now you realize that last 20 minutes was you. I didn't bring that up. And she said, it's who I am now. And I get it. But that's the thing. She was
So how
very
did you handle it?
authentic.
Did you leave it all in?
Left it in. I that's you. You want to, I don't do politics, right? I do politics for a living. Public policy is part of what I do for my clients. So I don't do Democrat, Republican. I don't do those things. So it's, I said, if you're good, I'm good. I mean, it was the show. And, she said, no, listen, that's who I am now. That's my life now. Mm-hmm. And those are my opinions.
Yeah, it's authentic. Yeah.
So we left it in and she was good with it.
The tough thing is, this is why I generally don't do the political thing.
I haven't since, by the way. I haven't done it since.
Well, yeah. Good point. I just made a decision early on that, because I've always been a moderate conservative. That's what I am, and
likewise.
I don't make any bones about that. Like, it's out there. If you look hard enough, you'll find it. But if I had a conservative on, I don't want to be in a situation where I can feel myself naturally just agreeing with things. Right. Although I probably do.
Sure.
I just don't want to project that as, to taint the show.
Right.
Or if a liberal comes on and says a lot of different things, I don't want to be in that position where do I go combative? Do I, and even, you know how it is. You could be very particular,
right,
and very easygoing in your questioning, but it elevates, it escalates.
Well, it does because
no one wants to see that.
Your personal opinions are going to come up.
Of course.
There's a button that we all have. I don't care how the word you use, unoffendable. I don't care how unoffendable you are. There's a button that can be pushed it's going to change your perspective in that moment.
Yeah. It won't change the way I feel about the person. That's the one thing.
Exactly.
It's like I could argue with you till you're blue in the face about philosophy, and at the end, we're good.
Exactly.
Then I think society used to run that way. Yeah. But I just so what I do is I try to, and it sucks because there's some really great local politicians that I think are great people, and I'd like to get their backstory, but invariably it's going to go to policy.
It will. And
I don't want to deal with it.
Right. And to be honest, you and I included, very few people can really have an in-depth discussion on policy. Policy's tough. It's tough to understand. It's complicated. It's immense. It's all of those things.
Well, most of society really doesn't know. They just pretend like they know.
Right. And so, I
included. I
avoided that. And again, my intention was to talk about this remarkable young lady and her life and her, and again, she steered it there, and I said, "You want to leave it?" And she said, "Absolutely, that's my life." So I said, "Okay," so we did that. But we both looked at each other after and said, "No more elected officials. We're going to just leave this right here. We've been there, done that. No more."
I had a guest come in early back in 19 first year that came in with a Trump tie and a Trump hat, and I said, and I used to send out like a guest. Not a questionnaire, but just a couple bullet points of things that and I quit doing that. But I said, please understand that, and I explained we'd stop at the breaks with no political overtones or whatever. And if the conversation goes in that direction, like the Four Friends shows that I do, who knows where those shows end up?
Yeah, sure.
But we never had political really debates though,
right?
Which has been great. And I've had people on both sides of the aisle.
It's such a touch point.
I don't want to be the place to go for that, though.
Right.
I
don't blame you for that.
They can get it everywhere else, right?
Yep. It's everywhere. You can't look away.
What was the most impactful show that you've done? And that's probably putting you on the spot, but that's not fair. What's one of the shows that you had where the story just it affected you for days beyond the show? How about that?
I think the Hikima Place story, that show jumps to mind. We were shooting a show, and how we met them, we ended up having maybe a half a dozen, maybe 8 nonprofits on the show. Not intentionally. It's just one of those things that worked out. But we were doing a show. I believe I believe it was Jeff Hancher. But I may be wrong on that, but there were these two young ladies were over in the coffee shop, and they were watching what we were doing, and they would walk over and listen, and so they just were hanging out there. And when we were done, they came over and they asked if they could introduce themselves, and we said, yeah, absolutely. We love when people come up and talk to us, and so they give us a business card, and here they had a little business of their own that they supported nonprofit organizations. And they introduced us. They said, could we introduce you to one of our clients here in Pittsburgh? And it was Sakima Place. So they told us the story, and we did some research and reached back out to them and said, hey, listen, if we would love, this is a great story. We would love to have these people on. Can you set that up? So it just, serendipity maybe, I don't know. But Kate Fletcher, who was the founder of the organization, was flying in from Kenya that next week, and she was bringing one of the girls who went through the program, and so they'd love to be on the show. So let's do it. So we had them on the show, and if Kate's story wasn't enough, the young lady who was dropped off at the orphanage as a baby and went up through, and now is a 20-something who, with the skills that she had learned, started a business, and her story on top of that. I mean, that was a punch in the gut, because they told stories of girls being dropped off at the gate because one little girl who was 4 or 5 years old, her father traded her to a guy for a cow, and when he realized that she was of no use to him, he just dumped her at this orphanage. And a lot of stories like that are just gut-wrenching. Just when you think about how most of the world lives, you realize how blessed we are here. I mean, the majority of the world is, day to day, just every day is a fight for survival. And that show really got to both of us. It got to Nick too. And I told you the story about the documentary, but that really got to us. And Kate Fletcher's story was tragic in itself. She was put in an orphanage in Philadelphia, and when she got to middle school age, decided that she wanted to come to Pittsburgh and join the convent. She joined the order out here, went all through high school and college, and she was in the order until she was in her 40s, and she asked to leave. She wanted to try to see what the world was like, and got out there and just without a net, right? And was doing her thing, met a young fellow who was an orthodontist, I believe, a dentist, fell in love, didn't even know what that was, had been sheltered all those years, got married, and was living happily ever after, and then he passed away. And she knew that she said she knew in her heart that she needed to continue to give and to do something. So she went on the internet and she typed in AIDS, Africa, orphans, just a couple of keywords. A couple of things came back. So she sent letters and resumes, and one of them responded to her and said, when can you be here? She literally sold everything, packed up, and flew to Kenya. Again, without a net. And the rest is history. She just retired. She's 86 or 7 now. And but now she's got an orphanage, a couple of hundred girls, and started up a school, K through 8, and they're now expanding the school to go through 12th grade and graduate kids from this school.
That's quite a story.
They have a school board, a board in Kenya, and a local board here still in Pittsburgh. And it's an amazing story. But thinking about, if it wasn't for doing the podcast and those two young ladies sitting there, happened to have a cup of coffee there and introducing us, this is one of the most interesting organizations and group of people that I've ever met. None of that would have happened without the podcast. So
it's perspective, right?
Yeah. And so when you think about, look at you, doing the podcast kind of introduced me to you to the point where I like what this guy's doing. This guy seems really cool. And I looked and I saw the Boogie Street stuff and all of that, and interested me enough to invite you to come on the show. you know, because you had a story that was really cool when you talked, the way you talked about your brother.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a thing, you know. I mean, we've all lost somebody that we love tremendously.
Sure.
And, you know, and
Sure.
so all of those stories, and, you know, the podcast has been a blessing in that it's given me the platform to do something that I always wanted to do. You know, I likely never would have been able to reach out to Eric McKenna and meet you to the point where say, hey, I'd just like to get to know you.
Sure.
Let's have a conversation. You know what I mean? And vice versa. So, and I'm sure you have a ton of guests that you can do the same thing.
Yeah, it's enriching. It can be really enriching too. And it's I get this feeling sometimes when you hear stories such as what you just said. It's like when I've accomplished things in my life and I look at the, wow, I was able to do that. It's, you haven't done anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's nothing compared to the bigger picture.
You know,
selfishness of people,
yes.
you know?
It's
crazy.
Even now, I consider myself to be an intelligent professional human being. Right now, I'm not dropping everything that I have and jumping on a plane and flying to Kenya, not knowing if I'm even going to have a place to stay when I get there. I'm not doing that. I don't got that kind of courage. I just don't.
I know.
You know?
I know.
That's faith.
That's
faith. That's having faith.
And some people are just wired better.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can describe it.
True story. I agree.
Just better. And you have to be humble enough to realize I'm not wired that way.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's easy to admire people that are wired that way. I look at first responders, you know, something as simple as that.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't go into the military because I was probably afraid of dying, but I was also didn't go in to be a policeman in a first responder because I didn't have the courage to, you know, deal with someone who's dying.
Yeah,
right?
I'm right there with you. I've thought about that. You know, how would I react in that situation? You know, I mean, we've all watched the movies and the television shows, and you think that. I'm sure you've thought that. How would I react in that situation? You know, if I'm in a restaurant and somebody has a heart attack, how would I respond?
Just thought about that yesterday.
I don't want that. You know, I like to think that I would at least try to help to do something, you know, but I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm the guy that freezes in that situation. You know, I've been through a lot of things in my life and had a very circuitous journey to get where I'm at. And I've experienced a lot of things, and I'm grateful for all of them, even the bad ones. And there have been some bad ones. But, you know, when I was coming out, I mean, I was at the tail end of the Vietnam War, like, you know, 75, 76, and, you know, into the mid-late 70s. And I had grown up. Well, here's the thing. I was born into a country that was in rebellion and full of chaos. I was born in 1960. Okay. So I vividly remember the 60s, right? That was, my mother was a hippie. Like my mother she was in her mid, she was 20 when she had me, right? So I remember my mother and all her friends. The thing I remember most about my mother is music. There was always music in the house, right? I can sit and tell you the set list that the Beatles did in 1964 on the Ed Sullivan Show, because I sat and watched the damn thing with my mother on the couch. I was 4 years old, right? So to this day, I saw her standing there. It was one of my favorite songs, still is to this day, because that was my introduction to music. And my mother and all her friends, and, you know, they were always at the house. They were like my granddaughter's age now, right? Early 20s, mid 20s. And I was tagging along, and I remember my grandfather coming to the house when it'd all be there, and they'd be playing music, and my grandfather would just shake his head. He's damn hippies. And that was like, when I think about that now, I chuckle about it, because it was such a unique way to grow up. I remember them, my mother's friends, being so excited coming over because a new album came out, you know, and they were so, I mean, that was it, you know. And I was blessed because they had very eclectic tastes in music. You know, Beatles, the Beach Boys, the Rolling Stones, Motown. And then my father was another layer, because my father is older than my mother, about 6-7 years. He was a jazz guy. So when my dad was around, you'd be hearing Dave Brubeck, Coltrane, Miles Davis, these guys, you know, and Nancy, loved Nancy Wilson. Used to go to Walt Harper's attic. Walt Harper was a good buddy of his, because he was that guy, right?
The shady side, right?
Yeah. So it was a very eclectic way to grow up. So I got kind of the best of both worlds, and but it was total chaos. My dad and I sitting, it all comes back. My dad and I sitting watching Neil Armstrong walk on the moon. And I said to this day, these conspiracy theorists that say, no, that was a sound stage in Hollywood. Bullshit. Okay, I watched that. I saw it. So I witnessed it. So don't give me that stuff. So, but those were such amazing times where we were innocent, but far more aware of the world than we should have been at our age,
No, I bet.
So
I bet.
It was a fascinating time, civil rights movement. And, I sat one day, Eric, I got to tell you this story real quick. A good friend of mine that I grew up with, African-American kid, he kind of went our separate ways after high school. He moved south and he became a firefighter down in Virginia. And we reconnected on social media 25 years later. And we were talking, and he was talking about the racism that he faced when we were growing up. Mm-hmm. And I was, I'd always sat down. I lived this kind of little, down in Charleroi, PA. I lived in Ellisville Township in the country. I was kind of a little country boy, but we had that urban peace and all of that. And my part of Charleroi was rural, right?
Okay.
So he's telling me these things, and I never saw it. He was just my buddy. He wasn't black. Mm-hmm. He was my friend, right? And we sat and talked for a couple of hours, and we cried. We both cried. And I'm like, I was speechless. And one thing he said to me, he said, just one thing, promise me that you won't ever tell me you're sorry. And I said, well, I don't know what to say. Mm-hmm. Because we were such good friends. Why didn't I see that? He said, because I didn't share it.
And I think that was a just happened a lot.
Mm-hmm. It did. It was the world we lived in here in southwestern Pennsylvania back at that time. Mm-hmm. And it was this is my favorite place on earth, and it was a great place to grow up and to be a kid and all those things. And like I said, I was blessed with great parents, but there was a dark side back then as well.
Oh, certainly. There's always going to be a tough element in society anywhere. I just think more of it's on display today, unfortunately.
And again, it gets back to social media, the internet, and there's more information out there.
But is it good information?
I think more often than not, it's not. I mean, it's really not, because we're trigger happy again. We're trigger happy with these certain buzzwords and keywords that we put out there, that because we've gone so far to the edges, right, to the fringe, that
couldn't agree more.
We know words that we just know what to say, and things that are offensive now that we wouldn't even have given a second thought.
No. Yeah, it's like we're the extremes of both philosophies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if it's fair to call them right or left anymore, but the extremes of the two political philosophies in this country, the extremes of them are so extreme that they're coming around and meeting in the back.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
The Democratic and Republican parties that we knew no longer exist.
No.
They no longer exist. They've been distorted, and just, again, we're out in the fringe. There's nobody here in the center. There's nobody in the middle.
How'd that happen, do you think?
Oh my God. I don't know. That's probably a pretty in-depth conversation for, it's going to take us down a path neither one of us needs to go to. But,
I mean, do you think just talking in generalities, do you think it's technology driven?
I do. I think it's technology. I think obviously it's easy to blame the internet and social media, but, technology is what really did it, because it made it available and accessible to us. I think it's always been there. And I also think that, we just never knew. We didn't communicate that. Those weren't conversations that we had.
That's it.
When we were growing up, right? We didn't have those conversations. And I think some of it is because we didn't really feel we had to. I mean, we were just folks. We were people. And
maybe it has something to do with it. We didn't think we were educated in the subject, so thus
True.
we didn't generally speak on things that we didn't understand.
Right.
For the most part, the masses didn't.
We didn't do that. You're right.
Now we
You're
think
right.
we know a little bit about everything.
Even when you think about back in the day, in newspaper day, right? In the heyday of newspapers, you would have editorials and stuff, but even they were different than this. They weren't angry. There were guys who became famous and became millionaires by writing their opinion in the New York Times or whatever, but they weren't angry. They didn't insult people. They didn't incite. They gave their opinion, and you were free to read that and disagree, right? You didn't have to agree with what they said. You could formulate your own opinion around that, but now you're better off ignoring it, because if you put up a difference of opinion, you're going to get attacked from 25 different directions, right? So I think we lost our ability to have a productive discourse, a respectful discourse with each other.
Yeah, but how did that happen? Because that's not technology, That's the crazy part. Why are we not willing to listen to the other side?
That's a great question, because, I sit and I think about what brought us to the last 16 years of leadership in this country. Not just the presidency, but leadership in general. Where you have, I think we've lost sight of what a republic is, right? Because you can get into that debate: are we a democracy or a republic? They're very similar, but they are different.
Technically, it's a representative democracy.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And you get everything ends in a debate. We live in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. How's that different from the state of Pennsylvania? It's different. There's some nuances, but if you want to be correct, we live in a Commonwealth, not a state. But does that, in the overall scheme of things, as a Pennsylvanian, does that matter? Does it really matter?
No. Especially because no one is really that interested in learning the differences between the two.
Exactly.
Why do we speak on things? Let me ask you this. Why do we feel compelled to speak on things that we really don't know a lot about?
I never understood that.
Because that is more prevalent, I believe, today than it has ever
Absolutely.
been.
Absolutely. Everybody's an expert. And everybody has to be right. Nobody wants to admit that, well, you know what, Eric, let me say, I appreciate this conversation because I didn't know that. I thought I agree with you. I thought it was this. I didn't know. I was wrong. Thank you for showing me that. You know what I mean? Now, how hard is that? It's not hard. I mean, it doesn't make me any less of a human being.
Humility.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I that puzzles me a lot. The discourse puzzled me a lot, and I see how easily it is to get swept up in it. I mean,
it is,
especially during the beginning of the pandemic. You picked one side or the other, and it was based on what your beliefs were. It was easy to fall in line, like, "Oh, this is terrible," or like, "Oh, we're doing the best we can to protect society." Whatever your side was, I can see how it got volatile. The point is, in the end, if we were to just think, maybe, James, just a little bit. Take a deep breath and ask the next question, and maybe the third question.
Right.
We probably would come up with a different answer.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the biggest mistake that most of us make when we're having a conversation is we want to be right. We would rather be right than agree, right? So when you're saying, well, if I make a statement and you respond, okay, most people are already formulating their response to
they listen to
saying.
Respond.
Right. And we can't, I think society, American society, our society has cannibalized itself in a certain way.
Okay.
I think that we have become a caricature of who we always wanted to be, right? You talk about freedom, the basic tenet of what this country was created on, right? Freedom for all people. Freedom for, have we ever really been free? Have we ever really experienced, any of us, true freedom?
No.
Can
we handle it?
I don't know that we can. And you could point to what our society is now as evidence that we can't, right? I get on the fringe. The community I grew up in, Charleroi, I mentioned, has been in the news with the because of immigration and in a Haitian community, and so several years ago, it's been about 8 years now. I served as president of the local chamber of commerce down there, Mon Valley Regional Chamber of Commerce, and I'm old enough to remember that community when in its heyday. Okay, in the 50s and 60s, we actually found records that in the mid 60s, from say 64 to 68, the borough of Charleroi, okay, with 10,000 people at the time, had the 5th largest economy in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
I believe that.
Okay, it had 2 main streets. Every building had a retail store in it, an apartment above it. Times were good. Steel was king. Everything was good. When the wheels fell off of that, nobody made a plan. There was no, people thought steel would be there forever, right? People thought coal would be there forever. This would be, things would never change. So now you have a community that has 2 main streets, Route 88 going through Charleroi, 1 main street going north and the other south. Can only sustain 1, all right? So McCain Avenue, which is Route 88 north, it's got some shops. It's more vacancies than anything else, but it gives you some semblance of a community, of a downtown, right? So Fallowfield Avenue, Route 88 south, is nothing but boarded up windows and vacant lots.
Right.
So these Haitian immigrants come in here. What brought them here is completely and utterly irrelevant. Who knows why? Who cares why? They came here for a better life. If you know anything about Haiti, you know that no matter what they fell into here, they were going to be better off than where they were. The majority of them, the vast majority, are legal immigrants. I would never say that 100% are, because I'm sure there are people that slip through the cracks all the time in this country.
Sure.
But these people came here legally, looking for a better life. They found jobs that the local Washington County Charleroi residents didn't want, because those jobs were there. They were vacant. Nobody took them. I rode through the town the other day on Fallowfield Avenue, and guess what? There's people on the street. There's people out. There's storefronts. There's a grocery store. There's this store. There's that store. These immigrants have invested in the community. They have opened stores. They are creating commerce in the community. So why are we upset that they're there? Because Donald Trump lumped them in with the with the puppy dog eating Haitians in Youngstown or wherever it was, which never happened. So one man stands up and makes an outlandish claim that isn't true. He's never been there, has no idea what's going on. Somebody said that or wrote that or whatever, and he picked up on it and he used it as a flashpoint in a political campaign. I don't have a problem that he did it, but you don't just blindly believe what somebody said, just, an outrageous comment like that. So when you know the story, the true story behind it, these people are working and striving and trying to build their American dream.
Plus, they're here legally.
They're here legally.
So there should be no notice of them in anything inappropriate.
Right. That's what troubles me the most, because there's a visceral response to these people. It's unwarranted, it's unfair, and it's really, really terrifying when you think about it. So what happened when all of this hit social media? Guess who now is in the community of Charleroi is putting flyers out and recruiting members? The KKK. Okay?
Yeah.
Never would have been there in a million years, right?
It's a breeding ground.
Exactly. There's always been a black community in Charleroi. There's always, always. Now, because we've drawn this attention to it, and Haitians are black. Now, all of a sudden, this is what the people in Charleroi, the people that I grew up, the people that I know that are still there. This is what they have to live with now.
Yeah, the messaging it's like the most outlandish things that anyone can say. Doesn't matter what political bent they are.
And
it gets picked up. It's picked up by social media, and it's believed.
Right.
And what I don't understand is how we've become so intellectually shallow. It's the only way I can put it. That we just
and that's a great way to put it.
Ask the next question.
Right.
Is that sounds crazy? Is that really right? Let me spend 2 minutes of my life. You've got Google. Try to look for a different source and see if it's, do some natural...
Do some research.
Verifying.
Yes.
So you're ingesting what you do believe is actually maybe the truth.
Right.
We don't do that. We look, boom, we accept it as fact, and we go.
And to your question...
It's crazy.
I think that's what happens.
It's dangerous.
It's very dangerous. And I was using a recent example for that particular example.
For sure.
It doesn't matter what side of the aisle. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what race, what religion.
That's exactly right.
Everybody does it.
Yeah, there's always a trigger point. If it isn't gender, it's race. If it isn't race, it's sex. If it isn't that, or it's anything.
Why do we have this
income
burning need to have someone to hate?
But how do we get there?
I don't. That's the.
It has to be technology.
That's the million-dollar question. I believe it is, because I think we've made life too easy for ourselves. I think we have advanced so fast technically.
That's it.
Yeah, we've made life too easy.
We've said that so many times on this podcast. Life, it's too easy just to survive anymore.
Yeah,
and that's a horrible way to put it, I guess. But the point being, life is better than it's ever been. There's more things that are cool things to acquire.
Yeah.
You could sit in front of an 80-inch screen television for like $1,000,
right?
And never leave the house and watch movies all day. There's too many things to make us comfortable.
Yes.
You think?
Comfortable is the worst thing we can be. I remember, that was a thing. You strive to be comfortable physically, financially, socially. If you were comfortable, that was a good thing. I think that has flipped. I think comfortable is a bad word right now. I don't think we should be comfortable, because it's a negative, because we get lazy, we get resentful, all those things. And then we look at, oh man, Eric just got a brand new Mustang. Look at that. I'm driving a Buick. That's not fair. That's not fair. How'd he do that? He must be doing something wrong. He must be doing something illegal. How'd he do that? He's no better than me. Instead of saying, Eric, dude, that's a cool car, man. Congratulations. Mm-hmm. I love it. It's really cool. Tell me about it. Blah, blah, blah. We don't do that. We are envious and resentful. More than ever.
Which is, I don't personally understand it.
I don't either. Because, in my world, everybody can win. Everybody can win.
It's the only way.
Yeah. And I cheer for everybody.
Well, okay. So that's an interesting question. So, is it people with successful business backgrounds, regardless of the discipline, regardless whether it's in a corporate setting or an entrepreneur setting, do you think that being successful in business to any degree teaches you life lessons that make you less envious of others, make you... Do you see what I'm trying to say?
I do see what you're trying to say. That's a great question.
On-the-job training for other aspects of your life besides the task at hand?
It should be, but it not always is. Because, what drives business, commerce? What drives that? I mean, basically, it's greed. You want to make a profit. You want to make money. If you're in business for any reason, if you're not a nonprofit, if you're in business for any reason other than to make a profit, you're probably doing the wrong thing, right? Business exists to make a profit. Mm-hmm. But I believe that business done right can change the world. I think business will. Government's not going to do it. No. Not our government, not England, not France. No government
ever.
No. But business can change the world. Now, it would be nice if government would set the platform for business to do that. But it's just like jobs. It's not the government's responsibility to create jobs. Business is supposed to do that, right? But the government needs to clear the path for them to do
100%.
Right? But I think business done right, business done from the heart, with soul, authentically, right? Those people, those entrepreneurs, those business people are changing the world and can. I believe that 100%. I think, and that doesn't necessarily mean, supporting nonprofits and throwing a lot of money around. I don't care how much money Bill Gates throws to nonprofit. Good for him. That's great. He has more than enough to give, right? But what is happening with those dollars? don't just check a box, right? I don't want these guys to just say, okay, oh, look, we saved the whales. Check that box. No, what did you do? Put your money where your heart is. Put your money where it's. Invest in humanity. Don't invest in a specific organization. Invest in humanity. When business does that, and there are businesses out there, most of them are overseas, they're global, but there are businesses out there that do that. Mm-hmm. They're human driven. Mm-hmm. That will change. That's how the world's going to change.
Yeah, it's that constant fight against greed.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's like and then it all comes down to the individual who happens to be in the position of power,
right,
within an organization,
right,
that sets the philosophy of it. Politics too, but it's just incorporate. It's such a balance, and if you've ever balanced a P&L, whether you're a pizza shop or the smallest business, or you've been a president of a Fortune 500 company, it's still the same.
It's still the same.
You have to understand the idea of profit.
Right.
And I get it. You got to make money. I was there. You understand it.
Sure.
So it's like, as I've gotten older, the humanity of commerce, if that's even a thing, in my world it is, that's taken more of a precedence as opposed to the lust for greed, the lust for the currency, the monetary, the statistical measurements.
I'm in the same place. You're exactly right. I don't measure success personally by material things. I don't need a 12-room house. I don't need a mansion. I don't need a Bugatti or or a Ferrari. I don't need that. I've driven Honda Accords. This is my third one. I'm at about 700,000 or 800,000 miles in these cars, and it's the best. I'll never drive as long as Honda makes that car. That's what I'm going to drive. Mm-hmm. It's the best car I've ever been around. It has everything that I need. Some things that I don't need, but I like it.
Yeah,
it got me here. It didn't get me here.
Listen, on time.
I wouldn't have got here
That's
any
rare.
faster in a Ferrari. So it's not like I think I've become more human, in my dealings, because for the last nearly 30 years of my career, it's been about making money. That's what I do, business development in the engineering industry, right?
Of course.
So my job is to win projects and to, put butts in seats and create revenue. I've lost jobs because the person in that CEO seat didn't think that we made enough.
Right.
So,
Sure.
So I understand how that works, but I also understand that, like you said, that person in that leadership role, if that person, he or she, is invested in humanity, in the human side of their people, because I don't care what product you have. I don't care if it's engineering. I don't care if it's a widget, if it's a car, if it's a TV set. It doesn't matter what it is. That product isn't your business. Mm-hmm. The people that make it, the people that sell 100%. It, that's your business. So if you invest in your people, they'll invest in your company. Your company will succeed. If you don't, you're going to fail. You're going to fail.
It's so true. It's when I got into sales, I learned right away, you have to grease the wheel.
Oh yeah.
You got to figure out, and I mean that ethically.
Sure.
And then I started my own business, and I was a one-man show, so I didn't have people, but I had people, my vendors, who were creating things for me to sell. And I realized, if I treat them really good, they're going to do a really good job. It's not really hard to figure. If it's good business all the way around, you treat the people that are producing and make them feel like they're appreciated, which is just common kindness, right?
Yeah.
If you do that,
it is.
It's amazing how hard they will work for you.
Yeah. And it goes the same way to your consumer, right? So you can have a cool logo, a cool tagline, you can make a great product, but if the people don't like you or your business model or your people, they're going to buy someplace else. They'll buy your competitor, right? Consumers want that. They want the bright, shiny thing. They want the cool thing. They want the sale, the great price. But they want to be able to say that they bought this from a good person, from good people. I mean, I've experienced that.
Yeah, I think so too. People want to do business with people that they like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we have a choice,
it's just basic, like you said, it's basic kindness. It's just basic kindness to a fellow human being. is all you have to do. It's not hard.
Yes, you'll laugh at this, James. So, my story was I never had college or anything. My first real job was customer service. I had no degree, and I'm working with all these people that are just, I viewed them as being, much better positioned to have the job than me. But I realized that I was outworking them because I was just being really nice to the customers. And I would go home at night going, wow, it really is just a matter of being nice to people, isn't it? Just be nice to people. And that one thing, that one mantra has stuck with me my whole life.
Isn't that amazing?
What I've been in, if you're nice to people, if that's your default mechanism, generally good things will happen for you.
Eric, I've gone from...
It's the truth.
It's 100% the truth. I have had the success that I've had in my career. I'm sitting here today, the man I am, because I've been a nice guy and I have no talent, no skill whatsoever. But I'm a good person. I'm nice and I'm kind to people. And people, they love that. They
eat
absorb that.
More than ever now because they're not used to getting it.
Well, right. Well, my story is very similar. I started going to college. First child came along. Unexpected, but we got married. We did the thing you did back then in the 70s. We got married and we made a go of it. But I needed a job. I had a human being that was depending on me now, right? So, and I'm 20 years old. I just turned 20. So I'm sitting there, what do you do? So got a job at PennDOT, believe it or not, on the road crew. My father knew the district engineer down in Uniontown. They grew up together, called him and said, hey, my kid, he's an idiot, but he's a good kid, help him out. So he did. So I met a guy and I wasn't thinking engineering. At that point in time, if you asked me what an engineer was, I would have said it's a guy that drives a train on a railroad because that's what my grandfather did. My grandfather was an engineer in the Union Railroad. I didn't know what engineers were. So guy said, once you come in, long story short, offered me a job as a draftsman. Didn't know what that was. Right? So this was before CAD, and I'm older than CAD. So I'm drawing, I'm doing all these things, and the next time I paid attention, I think, I had 3 kids, and I was 30 years old. Now what do you do? I mean, college is off the table, right? There's no way I'm going to finish. I'm not going to have the best of intentions. It's not going to happen, right? I know that, so what do I do now? So now I've got to find a way to carve out a career in an industry that I don't belong in. I don't have the qualifications. I mean, what do I do? So guy told me one day, gave me a piece of advice. He said, listen, if you're going to stay in this business, at no time will you ever be the smartest person in any room you walk in. But every single time you should be the hardest worker. Okay? All right. So I took that, put it together with my father's mantra of do good to people. Never leave anybody behind. Be nice to everyone, right? Mm-hmm. Share love, grace, patience, compassion, forgiveness, dignity, respect, kindness, and gratitude. Mm-hmm. You do those things, you're going to be okay. So I put those 2 things together. I was the hardworking, nice guy. And next thing I know, I started getting promoted. I started getting opportunities. I made it to a senior vice president in a large engineering firm, national corporation, because I was a good guy. Mm-hmm. No other reason. Mm-hmm. I didn't deserve to be there. If you look at my resume, you would laugh. I mean, it's just like,
that's a success story.
I've done very high level things.
That's a success story.
My old boss, who's a classic. I'd love for you to get him on your show because you would just idolize this guy. He's batshit crazy because he's the brilliant human I've ever met. And he's one of those guys that he's the most authentic human I've ever met because he didn't care. He was, this is me. This is who I am. And he's the guy that in the late 90s saw this in me, saw that I was able to communicate, that I was able to talk to people and do these things. And he said, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to try to do business development. This was like 98, 99. And I said, well, I don't know what that is, but what the heck, I'll try it, So he started putting me out with clients and developing projects and businesses, and I had a knack for it. But nobody other than that guy in the 30 years before that or 20 years before that even had an inkling that I could do those things. So go over there to your desk, draw this picture, do this thing here. I did surveys, I did construction work, construction management. So he and I became very, very close. And he was a unique individual, but always, always, always be you.
Mm-hmm.
Just,
It's good advice.
And he's a brilliant human being. Just, because he's so smart, we say he's eccentric, right? Not crazy, but if he didn't have so many degrees, he'd be crazy. But but he created a platform for me to become who I am, to take those things, the work ethic and the genuine care for humanity and just the good guy, right? And he gave me the platform to implement that and to become that. And to this day, he's 82 now, and I talk to him all the time, and he's an important part of my life. He's probably the most impactful human other than my father that I've ever encountered in my life.
Wow.
And it was just totally by chance that our paths crossed.
So did he form a mentorship for you? Was he a mentor for you?
He yes, professionally he was. I would say he's my most important professional mentor. He was quick to point out when I did something right and quick to point out when I made a mistake and to show me a different way of thinking, a different way of seeing things. And he's the guy that got me writing. He had me write a proposal. I used to read a lot when I was a kid. I liked reading. My father was a teacher. He was an educator by trade. And I read a lot. Education was very important to him. And the biggest disappointment I think my father was I never went to college. That was probably the one and only thing that I ever disappointed my father.
I think I share that with you.
Because
my own
that was
father.
important to him.
Yeah,
right.
I get that.
And
I get that.
So Bruce had me do his name's Bruce Fletcher, but he had me do a proposal, and I wrote it, and I'd never written any kind of document of any consequence before, and it was for Alcosan to try to win a project down there, and we ended up winning the project, so I played a part in that. That was just the proposal was a small part of it, but he called me in his office and he said, "I want you to write more. I want you to start writing more. You're a great writer." I said, okay, I can. So a couple of weeks went by and he called me in his office again and he gave me a journal. And he said, and this is powerful. He said, "I want you to put this on your nightstand." And he had a fancy pen with it. He said, "When you wake up in the morning, before you get out of bed, I want you to pick this up and write your first thought.
That's
Whatever it is.
That's good.
It doesn't matter what it is. If it's a word, a sentence, a page, 10 pages, write it in this book, because that is the purest, most honest thought you will have all day. That's the thought that is so important. Your heart kept it there for you while you were sleeping." So I started doing it. He said, "Then put it away and go about your day. When you come home at night, open it up and read what you wrote, and then reflect. Did my words and actions that day, were they in alignment with what I wrote?"
What'd you find?
In the beginning, no. But after a few months, 6 months, holy crap, what's going on here? What's this black magic that's happening here, right? Because everything was lining up. So, and that was like around 2011, 2012, and that's when I started blogging. So what I would do is I'd write the first thought, put it away, then go about my business. I had a routine. I would spend some time in the Word, in prayer, and I would read the Bible, and I would work out and all those things and jump in the shower. And before I would leave for work, I would go back to it, and then I would take it and expand on that thought. Then I just throw it out on Facebook as a kind of a really raw blog. And I started doing that every day. And I've been doing it every day. It's morphed into, the format has changed, but I've done it every day since 2012.
It's powerful. Writing daily is so powerful.
And it's made me a better person. Mm-hmm. I'm a better man. I'm a better husband, a better father, a better grandfather, a better friend, a better human being. Mm-hmm. Because writing makes you think more. Even more so than reading.
No question.
I've always been a reader. I read one of my favorite books was Gulliver's Travels. I read it to my son when he was 5 years old. We would sit at night and would read a couple of pages every night before he went to bed. And I mean, this dude in kindergarten was reading all kind of stuff because I was reading to him. You know, my dad did that to me, and that's something that we. You know, it's funny. In you know this. You know, you have a father and a son, right? And you know, generations how the things that your father gave you that you gave your son, you know, and
100%.
You have these. My father was baseball, so my father, he played basketball in college. He coached football and basketball in his teaching career. Never played baseball in his life, but absolutely loved the game. Huge Pirate fan.
I feel sorry for him.
Oh, well, keep in mind.
He was in the right era.
We went. He took me to my first Pirate game was at Forbes Field.
Yeah, that was the right good era.
I was a Clemente guy. We would sit in the right field bleachers, you know.
He was the good era.
And then I took my son to his first game at Three River Stadium, and he takes my grandson now to PNC Park, you know. And from my dad to me to my son, now to my grandson, baseball, the Pirates have been a really cool thing.
100%.
You know.
100%.
And my son and I hadn't gone to a game for a while. He was an adult at this point. And do you remember the Johnny Cueto blackout game, the playoff game?
Yeah.
I got tickets and we went. That was the first time we had gone to a game.
That was a moment.
Since the Braves series, the Sid Bream series.
That was also a moment.
Yeah. Well, he was a little kid. I had him at, we went to a game at Three Rivers. Well, we went to the Johnny Cueto game and we were right behind it. We were right on the Pirate dugout. I had a good buddy of mine who had season tickets and he was out of town and he gave them to me. And, I mean, he still talks to me about that game.
Of course.
You know, so it was like there were two games, you know, the playoff game when the Pirates were good, the Barry Bonds Pirates when they were good, and then, you know, the Cueto game. And it was just to be able to share that with him. And he tells his son about that. You know, what's the video on YouTube, you know, then, and it's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. It really is. And it's those types of things now that I think that I'm older, that I am a grandpa, I'm in that pappy mode. I think about those things more often. And I think about certain conversations that my father and I had, or that my son and I had whenever he was a kid. And my girls too. I mean, I know that I was a good father when they were growing up. I wasn't a good husband. I was way too immature and irresponsible to be a good husband. And it was at a point in my life in my 20s where I had to make a choice. Eric, I knew I couldn't do both. I couldn't do justice to both. So I made a conscious decision to be a great father. Mm-hmm. And my marriage suffered from it. And that marriage ended, unfortunately, because I made that choice. Because I knew myself, I knew there's no way I could do both. I just couldn't. I wasn't prepared for it. I wasn't emotionally secure enough. I just wasn't strong enough as a human being to do it. Mm-hmm. And so I chose to be the dad, you know?
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because, you know, I come from an era where you got married once.
For life.
Oh, my dad would come to tell me later on, he said, you know how many people that I know, that you know, that have been married 50 years that don't like each other? Think about it. You know, and he said, that's the way it goes. And he was a character. I said, well, how did you and my mother stay married for 60 years? And he said, I haven't heard a word she said since the 50s. So it's like, you know, so I just...
I'm sure she could tell you the same story.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. So he was... he called me once. They retired to Southern California. And my mother's still out there. My dad passed about 8 years ago. But he called me one day and he said, hey, I need you to do me a favor. I said, okay. He said, call the house and ask for me. He's on his cell phone. I said, why? He said, just call the house, ask for me, and she's going to say, I'm out, and ask her what I'm doing. She'll say she sent me to the store, and just say, what did you send into the store for? And I said, you didn't listen, did you? And he said, she said, I need you to go to the store. He picked up his keys and he went out.
So great.
He didn't hear what he was supposed to get, right? I said, you sure you're not No. He said, I said, well, why don't you just call her? And he said, have you met your mother? I am not calling her. So I called and I said, this is exactly how the conversation went. I said, hey, Mom, is Dad around? No, I sent him to the store. Really? Tell him he needs to get milk, eggs, this, and that. Yeah, she knew. She knew. Yeah, she knew. She's been married to him for 60 years. She knows. So, but yeah, he would not call and admit that he didn't hear what she said. So
that's that male pride, you know.
Oh my God, yeah.
We won't ask for directions. Now we don't have to worry about it, but that GPS saved our asses.
Oh my God. Oh my God. You know, we took a trip across country in the early 70s. I was probably like 71, 72. I don't know how we made it back alive. I really don't. We drove to California, went the entire country up and back, and we were gone for about a month. And to this day, I have no idea how my sister and I survived that. We were little kids. I was probably 11, 12 years old.
Probably didn't even have air conditioning in that car, probably not.
It was an old Ford. I'll never forget it. It was a Ford Fairlane or some darn thing like that. And oh my Lord, yeah, that was interesting.
When you write daily, because I also write daily, but that idea of writing when you first get up, I've never heard that before. That's a very interesting.
That's unique. That's the first time.
Have you ever gotten up and you've got nothing? Like, I'm tired, my back hurts, my knees ache.
There's been a couple of times when I've just written that. I've just written down, my back really hurts. But I always write something. I've gone through hundreds.
So sometimes you find yourself writing a paragraph or two, and sometimes just a couple words.
Yeah. It does. It doesn't really matter. Whatever's on my heart, I make sure. I'm very conscious. I make sure that I write it down, and I've started to. I never was one to dream or remember dreams, but I do now, and I think it's from that exercise.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
You know. But yeah, even if it's just a word, I write something. I mean, there have been days when I've written pages, when I've had something heavy on my heart, usually when something was wearing me down, was kind of grinding at me, you know. But I always write something. I've actually written, my back really hurts today.
That's just so interesting to me, because I've been journaling for decades, you know, and I've got everything. Mm-hmm. And so I've got this collidus, this I think it's a treasure trove, but I don't share it with anybody. But it's
write a book, dude.
Yeah,
write the book.
I know we're gonna get to that in a second. I just but I've always written in the afternoon or the evening. It's funny. To my knowledge, unless I was on vacation, I was doing nothing.
Yeah,
I never remember writing in the morning. I've never even thought of doing that.
It fit me because I'm a morning person. You know, I'm usually up by around 4 a.m., 4:30 because I've got a routine. I get all that done, and I write. So I'll write the first thought, then I go do my things, and I'm much more conscious now about spending time in the Bible and learning about the Bible. Growing up Catholic, I didn't really learn the Bible per se, right? I always felt that I had a relationship with Jesus, but not to the depth that I do now. That I've really dove into. Aside from going to mass and things, to learning about the Bible and studying the Bible, but so then I write, and usually between 5 and 5:30, I have a nice little blog written because everything starts to flow. Then I'll have a cup of coffee, do some yoga, stretch, do those types of things to get my body to move a little bit and really clear the cobwebs from sleep. But so morning works for me, and usually it's a struggle for me during the week to stay up till 10 o'clock.
I find that too.
I'm
Sadly.
usually, it's a running joke at my house. You wouldn't believe what goes on at my house after I go to bed, because she's a night person, and grandkids are always over, or daughter's over. When we were doing this last night, we did this. I said, where was I? Well, you were asleep. You were in bed. I get those stories all the time. People were at my house and, having parties, for God's sake, and I'm sleeping through it. But I've always been that morning person. So that really kind of, and I don't know if, I've never asked Bruce if he kind of knew that, if he suspected that. Because we always, especially if we had a project going on in construction, we were up and a lot of times on site at 7 a.m. So we were early people to begin with. Is
that an occupational requirement?
Yeah, it is. We would start, even when you're in the office, when there's nothing going on in the field, your day starts at 7:30, 8 o'clock. But if you're in the field and you got a project that's remote, for example, I had a project up in Conneaut Lake. This is a 2-hour drive, to be on site at 7. I had to leave the house at 5 a.m, and you're managing the construction. You gotta be there. So that was kind of how that came to me. I wasn't always that person, but I think that was an occupational hazard. That's the best way.
So it's your mechanism now. It's just built in.
Yeah.
You're up early every day.
I couldn't stop now if I wanted to. I don't even need an alarm now. So,
wow.
Yeah, I'm just up.
All right. So did the idea of writing come from your habitual writing, or was there one moment that just sparked you and says, I need to get this all collected in a concise? Because I would imagine as someone that writes every day, like you asked me, you said, well, write a book, because I told you I've been journaling forever. I wouldn't know where to begin. Like I think because I've written so much.
Exactly.
How do you get to the concise?
That's a great question. You don't. You get a professional to do it, because when I started to get comments and people tell me, "Oh, you ought to write a book. I love your blog. You ought to write a book." And yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be cool. I never thought about writing a book. Never had a conscious thought about it. And then somebody who has written books, who was an author and who does editing and publishing for a living, said, I would love, if you ever decide you want to do that, call me. I would love to help you do that. And so I thought about it, and I said, well, I called her. I said, well, what would that look like? And so we went through the process. And listen, I had taken and copied things, blogs that I had written, into a Word document with several 100,000 words. Okay. Mm-hmm. And she said, send me what you written. I said, okay. So I sent her an email. It was just like random.
It was a dump.
It was not everyone, but most of the blogs that I'd written in like the last 5, 6, 7 years. And she turned that into a book. So first thing she did was basically cut it in half. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then we went through, she sent it back.
So how humbling was that?
Oh, listen, I realized when I opened that document that I actually was not Ernest Hemingway. I wasn't. And but I remember then I read a story about Hemingway's editors, and he always felt like an idiot because they would always make him feel stupid, But he realized that if it wasn't for them, he wouldn't have been Ernest Hemingway either. Right. So she did a remarkable job, and she kept everything really, the really important stuff that if I had done it myself, that's what I would have wanted to get to. I will tell you that book is 99% of what I wanted it to be in my mind. She was that good. And even to the cover, mm-hmm. we settled on the title.
That's a good cover.
We settled on the title. Well, the young lady that did that cover, I had a 30-minute Zoom call with her. Never met her. She worked with the editor, the publisher, and she asked me questions, and we talked for 30 minutes on Zoom. And she sent me the design, and that was it. Wow.
That's good. That's impressive.
She's amazing. I was either greatly blessed or very lucky to find the people that I did to really put this book together. It's professional.
Most definitely.
It exceeds any expectation that I had. And the message is intact. The message, it flows well. The messaging, through telling kind of the story of my journey to get where I am. And I'm very honest in there about my stumbles and addictions and all those different things that put me on detours and derailed me along the way. And also the people who lifted me up mm-hmm. when I fell, and who motivated me, inspired me, and just walked with me to get me on the path where I've been for the last dozen or so years. That, I would say there are people that I mentioned in that book that not only changed my life, but saved my life. Wow. I was in a dark place. I've struggled with depression for many years, but now, knowing now what I know now, probably my entire life, probably even when I was a kid.
Wow.
Because when I think back, with the clarity of hindsight, I see things that And you know, in the 60s and 70s, nobody would have picked up on, in a kid especially.
I wrote some dirt on it.
Yeah.
That's what it was then, right?
That's exactly what it was. That's exactly
what so did you have, so you're encouraged to write, and you went and you talked to this editor.
Mm-hmm.
After talking with the editor, were you certain you were going to go do it, or did you still need time to come?
I needed a little time to talk myself into it, but I was committed to do it. Where I struggled was when it came back, when the final draft came back, I had serious doubts. And I said,
why?
Well, I said, nothing against you, because it was really only 2 cycles. And we had a book. We had a final draft. And I don't know if I had a panic attack or what, but I said to her, I said, listen, I'm not that good of a writer. I'm not sure I'm not sure. You know, I actually took a couple of months to really sit and be sure that I was ready to put that out. You know, and I didn't know, I didn't
So by
write.
cutting the fluff, you're saying you felt that let me ask you this question. Did you feel that her edited version did not represent your writing skill?
Yeah, I thought it was too polished.
Yeah.
I thought it was too polished.
I would have that same fear,
Yeah,
I think.
because, you know, I write like I talk. If you read my blog, Eric, you'll see. I mean, I write the way I
that's
talk.
good, though.
I don't speak the King's English.
So why is
right?
that not good for book editing?
It is. It turns out it is. But I was a neophyte. I didn't know. I was a rookie. It's my first book.
You think that changed over the last couple of decades?
I think it did. I think now that people are less concerned about having that pristine, specific grammar. You know, I mean, you let a couple of shouldas and gunnas and wannas and those types of things. But, you know, I think it's softened up a lot on that, because I think there's a movement toward real, toward authenticity. And I'm excited about that, because that's been my thing from day one, is that I'm going to tell you my story. Hopefully you get something from it. If you don't, that's great. Scroll to the next thing. But if there's something here in my story that helps you, if you're going, because there's nothing unique about my story. My sins, all that stuff, it's not unique. Everybody, you can relate to every single one of them. I'm certain of it, right? But I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to pull back the curtain, rip off the Band-Aid, and here's what happened to me, and here's what I did. And maybe this is an idea. Maybe you didn't try this. Maybe this won't work for you, but maybe this will stimulate you to think, well, find something that will work for you. So I don't write the blog to make money. I've never made a penny off of it. I didn't write that book to make money. I couldn't tell how many books I sold, because I didn't do it for the money. If that book got in the hands of one person that saved that person's life, that's why I wrote the book.
That's powerful.
And it sounds corny, but, you know, and that might be cliche, but that's the truth. I wasn't in hindsight, I probably should have written it, because I don't, you know, I had to invest a little bit of money into it, to write it, to publish it. Certainly. I started writing the follow-up to it. And this one, I'd like to make some money off.
Of course.
I really would, because it's going to be the person in the chair, the journey continues. So that book got to a certain point where,
certainly,
in my mind, I felt like I had become finally the man I was meant to be. So now I'm writing about what I'm doing to become the man that I know I can be, which is 2 different things, right? So I'm a good person. I'm that good guy, like I said. I don't say that to brag or anything, but I know I'm a good person. Nobody has to tell me that. I was born to be this person. But I know that the man I'm capable of being is still over there. He's still out there. And here's what I'm doing. The journey is continuing, and this is what I'm doing to get to be that guy. Will I get there? I don't know. But I'm gonna make the effort.
I get it. It's like that's the benefit of writing on a regular basis, I think, is you, by hook or crook, have to keep yourself accountable.
Absolutely.
And that's I don't think a lot of humanity likes to look in the mirror and do that on a regular basis.
No. And writing forces you to face your demons.
Correct.
It forces you. You can't hide from yourself.
Correct. Do you ever set out specific times during the year or during the month to go back and reread?
Oh, I do. I do that monthly. I do that monthly. I will go back and, well, one of the things is with the blog, I don't want to get redundant, because the message is the message, but I don't want to keep putting the same thing out there.
Nothing regurgitated or whatever.
Right. But I do it to remind myself, to make sure that, I'm still focused on I look back to look ahead. I want to be focused on the path ahead.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, you have to know what's behind you. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I do that. I will, I don't do a deep dive. I'll do a deep dive maybe once a year. I'll just really spend a weekend and really dive into things. But just probably at the end of every month, I'll go back and I'll just scan through.
It's great for memory. That's the one thing I'm approaching 60 now, and I think my memory is pretty spot on with my life. And that's only because I've regurgitated it. I've reread it.
Yeah.
Because I do mine at the end of the year, between Christmas and New Year's. I mean, this is the last couple decades. I spend that week, not the whole week, but I spend time during that week to go back and reread the entire year.
Yeah.
Sometimes multiple times.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fascinating because you have all these cool memories, and then you've got some really cringeworthy moments. Oh, you were so pathetic. What
were you thinking? Yeah.
Especially when you go back. Like I'll read something from the 90s now that I have, and I'll go, what was I thinking this day? I mean, because it's amazing how a human evolves. But what's great about this is it's right there.
It's there. Yeah. It's you can't walk away from it. You can't deny it. It's here. It's out in the open.
Yeah.
It's out in the open.
Yeah, that's cool though. That's really cool. I admire you. Anyone that's written a book at all, I admire you. It just seems like an overwhelming task. It always has felt that way to me.
It was intimidating. But it was much easier and much more pleasant than I ever imagined it would be. But I was blessed to find the right person to work with.
The editor helped, right?
If that person wasn't who she was, I probably would have had a different experience. But it was just, it was. That's why I think I had the panic attack, because it was too easy. I'm like, wow, I'm not that good. I know who I am. I know my shortcomings, my flaws. I've always been that guy. My father was that guy. My father was my hero, Eric, but he was a very flawed human being, and he never once tried to hide that from me. He was open and honest about his mistakes, his failures, the good stuff, the bad stuff, and he let me watch how he fixed things, how he made things right, how he, if he made a mistake, how he fixed that. If he was wrong, how he became right. If he harmed somebody, how he made amends to those things. So I think that allowed me to, when I look at people who are celebrity, whether it's athletes, to whatever the case may be, I don't put them on a pedestal. I can point to somebody. When my son was growing up, it was Michael Jordan, right? Michael Jordan was, I wasn't concerned if Michael Jordan did something bad or politically incorrect, and how am I going to explain that to my son? And it's going to be what it is. Well, yeah, he screwed up. Let's watch what he does. Watch his words and actions, his body language coming out of that. And whoever that is, myself included. I never hid my warts from my kids. This is Dad. I mean, Dad's not perfect.
Yeah, that's important, I think. But
it is.
To me, I'm not qualified to speak on parenting outside just own personal experience.
Right.
But
right.
Hiding yourself from your children, they're eventually going to figure it out.
You're going to figure it out. 100%.
It's bound to happen.
100%. If you're doing it right, they will.
Yeah. But if you hide bad things from them with the idea they're never going to learn of them, give them time.
Yeah, they will.
You don't want to deal with it now. You'll deal with it later.
Well, you'll go through all of these things. I mean, your kids are in their early 20s, right? And I went through the 20s, and now into the late 30s and early 40s, and my kids in their 20s weren't the same kids they were when they were 10, and my kids at 30 weren't just and it's. I'm actually excited, and one of the reasons why I want to live 20 more years is because I want to meet my son when he's my age, and when his son is in his 20s, right? I want to know them when they're my age. I get that, the OG thing, and you're old and blah 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 blah, and chronologically I'm 65 years old, so I'm pretty much qualified for that, but I hope you've been paying attention, young fella, because if you're lucky, you're going to be here one day. You'll be sitting in this chair, and I hope you're blessed. Because that's one thing my dad always said. If you're lucky, you'll get old.
Right.
If you're lucky.
We have an ass backwards view of getting old in this country. Oh, my God,
right? Yes.
Dude, that's the goal.
That's the goal.
The goal.
That's the goal. I hope I'm 85 one day.
Right.
You know, it's like,
I want more than that, man. I want to go.
Oh, my God.
I told all my relatives, I want to make my life, make your lives miserable. I'm going to live to be 110.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. You're not getting rid of me that easy. But it all comes full circle, and you start to realize these things. And then if you have, at our age, if you have a health issue, I just had a health scare, and I'm just like, yesterday I'm 3 weeks out from a major surgery that scared the shit out of me. Okay. I get in late May, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and blessed that it didn't spread. It was caught very early because I paid attention to those types of things as I started to get older, and no need for chemo, radiation, or anything like that. Got it out of there. We're done. Right? Great. Exactly. God bless me. God did bless me. But when you're going through that process of testing, and until you do the PET scan, the biopsy is one thing. Then you got to do a PET scan to see if it's spread or anything, and you're holding your breath. And, well, listen, you want to talk about having a lot of time to reflect and think. How about 24 hours a day? And I got the peace with it very, very quickly because I knew that it wasn't my plan, and I'm not going to get all spiritual or religious,
sure.
But I stopped worrying about things a long, long time ago because I knew when I come out of my divorce, I knew, okay, I was a train wreck, but none of this is in my control. All I got to do is just hold on. It's going to work itself out. Mm-hmm. He's going to lead me where I need to be. Mm-hmm. And he did, right? So all of that stuff kind of just started to fall away as I kept moving forward. And all I've done is just keep focused on the path ahead and just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And it worked out. And I said to myself a couple of weeks ago, I said, why is this any different? No amount of worry is going to change the outcome. Right. There's nothing I can do. I'm not a doctor. There's nothing I can do. I have a great doctor that I trust completely. I trust him literally with my life. He did a great job. Boom. And I have very strong faith, and I knew that I'd come through it. Yeah. So, but you can't help but get lost in those thoughts. You know what I mean?
It's the hardest thing for a human to do, I think, right?
Right. And I wrote a blog about it, and it's like, when you think about it, the funny thing I thought about is, why are we so terrified of that word? Mm-hmm. Since I got diagnosed, Terry Lynn and I have not said that word out loud in front of each other, not one time. Why? It is what it is. Mm-hmm. If I have the flu, we talk about having the flu.
Right.
But it's a thing, but it's a word that is just, we don't even think about it.
No, you're right.
Let alone talk about it.
You're right.
So, but that's another thing. The reason I said that is because that's another thing that writing.
It's therapeutic.
Yes. So those last couple of weeks, I've written pages in my journal in the morning. And that really kept my mindset in the right place. I've been positive. I never had an inkling, not even a second of doubt that I would come through.
That's powerful.
And that's why, because number one, I believed, but number two, I was like, this is all bigger than me. None of this is dependent on me and what I do. Right? So we got through it.
Yeah, God bless you, man. Glad to see.
It's life is crazy.
Yeah, that's perspective.
Life is crazy.
That's perspective.
And it's. I looked at Terry Lynn the other day, and we've been together a long time, and she has type 1 diabetes, right? She's insulin dependent, and I've always told her that the doctor wanted me to go and learn how to give her a shot, an insulin shot, and I said, I don't know if I can. She said, what are you going to do if I go into insulin shock and you have to give me a shot? I said, I'm going to miss you. I don't know, I can't. But I had.
Well, you survived that. You're here.
I did, yeah. Well, but I was lucky. I was able to convince her to get an insulin pump so she doesn't have to give herself shots. And that was completely selfic. Everybody, that was nice. You did that for, no. I did that for me because I'm not giving anybody any shots. I don't do shots. So, but, you don't know what life's going to throw at you. You just got to be ready and be comfortable with yourself and love yourself and your life and live it to its fullest, man.
I want to, before we wrap up, I want to ask you one thing. This I've been saying this for years, and I just like to talk to dynamic people and ask them this question. Do you think the motivational industry has it all backwards?
Yes.
Do you think that, I think this is not an original thought for me. I think Jim Rohn said this 50 years ago. But he was always under the belief that we get all these, including himself, all these fantastic, accomplished, dynamic people to go and talk to people and tell you what to do to make your life better. Instead, he would say we need to go and hire people that have messed up everything to come in and tell you how they had it all going for them and they messed it all up.
This is how I effed it up.
And not to do what I've done.
Right. Listen.
But we don't do that, though.
No.
Why? Why is that?
I'm not a believer in motivation. Motivational speakers, I don't believe that. I believe in inspiration, right? So when I do public speaking, and I do a lot of speaking gigs, I try to do a couple a month, but I always tell them, you're not hiring a motivational speaker. I'm not motivating anybody. You're hiring an inspirational speaker. So I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to go and I'm saying, I had the greatest life in the world. I had a beautiful wife, 3 great kids. I had a job. I was doing everything was great, and I pissed it away. I blew it. That's on me. I blew it. Okay. And here's what I did. This is what happened. So I can inspire you through my story. Okay. I can tell you, Eric, I can tell you my story all day. I'll sit here and I'll tell you things and I will inspire you, but there's no way I'm going to motivate you. Nobody motivates you but you.
Yeah. I've always believed that as well too. That's why the whole industry, the whole motivational industry, I don't even think they call themselves the motivational industry. I think people outside of that industry call it that.
Right.
But to that point, we're not listening to the right people.
Right. So when you listen to those guys who, like us, who have screwed up, we're not perfect. We've stumbled, we've bumbled through life, and by the grace of God, we're here. But we screwed up, and we acknowledge that we screwed up. And here, let me tell you my story. If you got,
and that should be more relatable.
Yes,
it should be
100%. Because and like I said, there's nothing unique or extraordinary about my screw ups. They're everybody's screw up. They're yours. They're everybody's. But maybe the way it impacted my life, maybe the way I responded, that I came back from it, is a little bit different, and maybe that will inspire somebody to think differently or try to do something differently. So I think we need to be talking to those people who have shit the bed. To be brutally honest, I don't want perfect people in my life. I don't think, first of all, I don't think they exist. But the people that put out the highlight reel of their life, I don't want to see that.
Yeah,
I don't want to see that. I want to see the outtakes, the flubs, the screw ups,
because they're not comfortable with the honesty within their life, and that's someone that I have a hard time fully entrusting.
True story. I mean, how can you trust that person that take your picture standing in front of a Ferrari and talk about how successful you are and in front of the big house and with your beautiful wife and all those different things. What does that tell me? What does that tell me? It tells me absolutely nothing. How did you get there? When you were living on the street, or when you were down and out, and you were living in a one-room efficiency apartment in Center City, and you were grinding every day and working 2 jobs. Show me that.
Yeah.
Show me that, because you could have, everybody should have a goal. There needs to be, like I said, my goal is to become the man I know that I can be. There's no material or monetary or financial benefit when I get there. My life's not going to change. My life will change on the way there.
Right.
So my goal is to be that person that I know I can be. So if my son's goal is to be, he's a businessman, he's got a degree in finance and economics, he's a brilliant young man. He's motivated by having the car, the house, those things, and providing those things for his kids. God bless him.
Absolutely.
His goal was to be here, right? He's not me. He doesn't have to share the same goal as me.
That's exactly right.
And
we need to be. I think we all need to be comfortable coexisting with our own wants and our own desires.
And all I ever said to him was, "I want you to have all those things, but I want you to promise me one thing: that you're going to be a good human while you're accumulating all that stuff. Be a good human being. Don't leave anyone behind." That was my father's mantra to me.
Yeah.
He said, "Be your best. Do the best thing you do, but don't ever leave anyone behind. Everybody,
that's a good one.
There's nobody." And I do that. I do that, man.
The person in the chair, James Protin. Get it. Amazon. They can
Amazon.
get it.
Yeah.
Amazon. Is it your website as well too, or just Amazon?
No, just Amazon. The website's under construction, so I had to crash it to rebuild it. So
you had to crash it to rebuild it. That's a good one. I had to crash it to rebuild it. I'm going to use that. That's good.
Nick's working on the website, so it's going to be phenomenal. But I have no idea when it'll be done.
I got to crash it to build it. See, I learned something today.
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
Thanks, James.
Listen, my brother. Thank you so much.
We'll do this again.
Absolutely. This was great.
All right.
I love it.
We're out.
Man.
Since 2023, the Eric McKenna Project podcast is exclusively presented by the Koza Law Group, Pittsburgh's premier business attorneys.